I'm going to tell you a stat that probably is going to blow your mind. And
Okay.
it bothers me every single day. I would say nearly half the people who buy our course never log in. Like, they don't log in. They got the dopamine hit of buying the course. I'm going to do it. I bought it. I'll get to it eventually. And then they use the self-sabotage of, if I would have done that, I would have been successful. So they justify them not taking action, right?
Right.
And then there's a large number of people who maybe watch the first module and never do anything from there.
Wait, what? Half the people who spent a lot of money on a course never even log in? Starting that side hustle seemed like a good idea at the time. Has a version of that ever happened to you? In the moment, your intention was pure. You were on fire. But that was a while ago, and you just haven't been able to get your side hustle off the launching pad. And you know what? You're not alone. In this episode, you'll discover the direct connection between what you're thinking and how that helps or hinders your side hustle success, and how you can set yourself up to win. Welcome to Side Hustle Hero, the podcast that inspires action and causes you to turn your side hustle into a thriving income stream. I'm your host, Joan Posivy. You just heard from Ben Knegendorf. He was a recent Side Hustle Hero guest whose expertise is in high-ticket dropshipping. Actually, I wasn't surprised by Ben's revelation. In my book, The Way Success Works, I describe the often disconnect between what we say we want and what we're doing, or not doing as the case may be, to create those results in our lives. Someone could say, I would love to start and build a beautiful side hustle, one that speaks to my passion, that fits in with my career and timetable, and maybe even build it to the point where I can quit my full-time and have the freedom and cash flow and self-satisfaction that I really crave. But merely wanting isn't enough. I really wanted, to be at ease public speaking. And honestly, there was a time that you could not have paid me, bribed me, or treated me to enough ice cream to be talking to you like this. I was born with introverted tendencies and was raised by a very loving but stay in the background kind of mom. And being the target of the grade school bully did not exactly help bring me out of my shell. But then at the age of 18, I met Carl, someone who would become my biggest cheerleader in life. Shortly after that, I found myself with him at an evening seminar. Now, I had been told by friends that this was going to be on business, predominantly marketing. I think they said that so that I'd go. Even at that young age, it appealed to me. I remember it so clearly. It was at the Hilton Hotel in Toronto, Canada, on Dixon Road. There was about 300 attendees, and I sat 4 rows back, 2 seats in, and for 2 hours, I sat mesmerized by what I was hearing. Turns out the speaker was not talking about marketing. He was talking about your mind and your potential. And he said, regardless of what you think your limitations are, despite what's happened to you in the past, the truth is you can have, do, or be anything you want in your life. Now, I got to tell you, I wanted to believe him, but that was so far removed from my understanding at the time. Number one, up until then, most of my learning had been in traditional school subjects, things like science, math, history. I had never had anybody talk to me before about my mind and my potential. And also at that time, I thought that when you were born, you were dealt certain cards from the big deck, so to speak, and those are the ones that you had to play. Well, that's fine if you were dealt a great hand, but what if you weren't? So then we took a break. I went out in the hallway of the conference room and proceeded to start pacing back and forth, obviously in deep thought. Carl was with me, and he knew exactly what was going on in my mind. He was watching me go back and forth. He was looking all calm, cool, collected. But you see, we had been offered, all 300 of us, the opportunity to sign up for an 8-session course at a cost of about $350. Now, as a 19-year-old, that's a huge sum of money. And in today's dollars, that would be the equivalent of about $1,300. But I was thinking, is it possible that this course could help me shed my wallflower mentality and be more outgoing and, dare I say, even social? It would have been so much easier and cheaper just to walk away and forget about it. I was thinking, it's probably a waste of time and money anyway. After all, you can't change who you are. Or can you? Or can you? It was that possibility that kept me from walking out. I mean, after all, who else was there to take responsibility for my life other than me? Then suddenly, exasperated, Carl pipes up and asks, "Well, do you think it'll help you?" And I said, "Absolutely." In that moment, I made a decision that truly set the course for my life. I committed to what was for me a huge investment, but what I received in return was priceless. One of the things I found so exciting by what I was studying is the results that it caused me to generate in my life, like becoming a bank manager at the age of 22, buying my first house when I was 19. And most importantly, I learned that these principles apply to everyone, to you, to me, everyone. The results I was seeing wasn't because I had any special insider knowledge or gift. Absolutely not at all. But what I began to see so clearly is how our thoughts shape our success and our failures. And it became clear, and what I want to convey to you in this episode is that those negative beliefs that are holding us back are just stories that we've made up in our head, and we can rewrite those stories. And we need to rewrite them if we're going to be the best version of ourselves. Now, the way we see the world and see ourselves in it is a combination of our genetic makeup that was built right into our genes at birth. And secondly, our environmental conditioning, things like the influence of our parents, our siblings, the culture that we were brought up with, the people we looked up to when we were growing up, authority figures, social media. You may have heard this described as nature versus nurture. How much is heredity and how much is learned. So when I describe myself as having introverted tendencies, that's the genetic part. And so to this day, if someone gave me a choice between having dinner with several friends or going to a large cocktail party, I'd lean towards the dinner with a few friends. But discovering that I could change just about anything that I wanted to about myself and learning how to do it, I went from being afraid to speak up to someone who is now comfortable on stage with a crowd of any size. And frankly, I do find joy in the ability to meet and greet essentially anyone, anytime, anywhere. That is night and day from where I started. Beliefs are simply things that we have deemed to be true. Now, whether or not they are is totally irrelevant. But in our heads, if they're true, we will look for evidence to support that belief. Let me give you a quick story to illustrate. It's about a psychiatrist who had a patient. Now, this patient was convinced that he was a corpse. Yes, a corpse. And this poor psychiatrist tried everything that she could think of to try to convince this person, no, you are not a corpse. You are a alive, fully functioning human being. Well, just at the point where the psychiatrist was about to give up on this patient, she got a flash of inspiration. And she said to the patient, "Let me ask you something. Do corpses bleed?" And the patient said, "Well, of course, corpses don't bleed." Well, with the patient's permission, she took his finger, got a needle, and stuck the needle in the end of the patient's finger. And sure enough, this drop of blood appears. And the patient's looking at his finger with a drop of blood on it. And he says, "Well, I'll be damned. Corpses do bleed." We will hold on to our beliefs. We will fight for them, even in favor of the truth. And the truth is, you have more talent and skill and potential than I bet you give yourself credit for. You can have, do, or be anything that you truly want in life, because if you can hold it in your head, eventually you can hold it in your hand. But there is an incubation or gestation period between the time that you get the idea and the time it manifests. And it's somewhere between those 2 points, the majority of people give up because they don't see evidence of it happening as quickly as they want it to be. And certainly those ads that we see on social media don't help. The ones that promise overnight success. Of the 100 plus side hustle heroes I've interviewed, for pretty much all of them, their success that we talk about on the show didn't materialize in the matter of days or weeks or months. It's typically measured in years. So that's a reality check for you if you're comparing yourself to others, which I don't recommend. Let's go back for a minute to what I was saying about that incubation period between the seed of an idea and the time it shows up in your experience. Imagine that I was holding an orange seed, and I were then to take that orange seed and plant it in fertile ground that's conducive to its unfoldment, to its growth. And then I cared for it and nurtured it. Over time, you and I could expect to see a beautiful orange tree emerge. Would you agree with that? Sure. Now, that orange seed would not grow into a cherry tree or an oak tree or a palm tree. We'd only expect it to grow into an orange tree. And here's the real interesting part. If we were to take that orange seed and dissect it and use the most powerful microscope, the latest and greatest technology, and look at it, we would never ever find a little orange tree in there because it doesn't exist. You could say the orange tree is in the universe. But what that seed does contain is a pattern plan or a nucleus that dictates what that orange tree is going to grow into. That seed is part of nature. You and I are part of nature and operate under the exact same laws, universal laws. But you know what makes us different? You and I can grow into anything we choose. When you decide, so this is beyond the point where you've been thinking about it and deciding which side hustle to do, when you make a decision that you're going to go for it, that's like choosing the seed. And then as you allow yourself to become in a relaxed state and see yourself in your mind's eye already in possession of the results that you're looking for with that side hustle, I mean, you can feel it. You can see it with every fiber of your being. You can see yourself sharing the benefits, the result of that successful side hustle with your friends and family, and really feel how that makes you feel. That's planting the seed, and that's caring for it and nurturing it. And like any seed, that's what we need to do to help it grow. But here's the problem. A lot of people, when they don't see evidence of it as quickly as they would like, they begin to doubt themselves, doubt the idea. And what they've done is uprooted that little seedling. But you and I know, even though we're caring for and watering that ground, there's a lot happening under the surface that we can't see. The moment that we plant that seed, instantly and automatically, it begins to attract particles of energy to it that are in harmony with it. And that's called growth. It expands and we get these roots coming out of the seeds. And then it starts to grow up towards the surface. It breaks through the surface into the atmosphere. It attracts particles of energy to it from the atmosphere. That growth continues. And now we've got a whole trunk and branches and leaves and twigs and oranges, all from that little seed. That's how it all starts. Now, I'm aware that there are some people who don't believe this. They believe only in what they can see. I'd like to challenge that belief for them when they're standing in the middle of a hurricane. Can you and I see wind? No, we can only see the effects of wind. And the effects that you and I are seeing in our lives right now are simply a reflection of what's going on in the mind. Know that our external results are merely a reflection of our internal reality. To change the outside, we got to first change the inside. If you're not happy with your crop of oranges, there's not enough, or they're too small. You don't try to fix the ripe orange. You go back to the source. What's feeding those oranges? That's where you affect the change. So how do you yield a better crop? It starts with noticing and correcting yourself. When you hear yourself say, I can't do this, I don't know how to do this, replace that with, I am resourceful. I will find a way. I'll figure this out. And when you hear yourself say, seriously, I don't know what the solution is to this, then follow up with, okay, if I did know the solution, what would it look like? That line has saved me so many times. If I did know, what would be my next step? Be persistent. So when you catch yourself mentally malpracticing, as I call it, bad-mouthing yourself, you correct it. Secondly, you put down in writing those to-dos that you know are essential to your side hustle and prioritize them so that you're working on those key priorities and not just the stuff that's easier or that you like to do. Because, and I'm sure you experience this, so often the things that move the needle for us are the things that are new or out of our comfort zone. So we tend to want to put them off. Write them down, prioritize. That'll help you get them done. How much do you talk to yourself during the day? In his book, Beyond Hypnosis, clinical psychologist Dr. Lee Poulos points out that we self-talk at a rate of up to 1,500 words per minute. He describes self-talk as our endless news broadcast about ourselves. Is your self-talk predominantly positive or negative? Shad Helmstetter, in his book, What to Say When You Talk to Yourself, reports that on average, 77% of what we're saying is negative, counterproductive, and works against us. More than 3/4. We need to take conscious control over that so that the majority of our self-talk is positive, productive, and working for us. Now let's go back to that orange tree analogy because it illustrates the connection between our thoughts all the way down to our external side hustle success. Your thoughts, which are on a conscious level, your feelings, which are on a subconscious level, drive your behavior, your action. Now, those actions that you take or don't take create the results in your life. Good, bad, constructive, destructive, it's all hooked up. Just like the orange seed, it starts with the seed of an idea. You're thinking about it on a conscious level. Then, as you fall in love with the idea, it excites you. You plant the seed in the treasury of your subconscious mind, and you really see yourself in your mind's eye already in possession of it. You see your side hustle goal. And as you do that repeatedly and really feel it with all your heart and soul that you're caring for it, nurturing that seed and protecting it, that drives your behavior. And there's so many reasons why that happens, which is beyond the scope of a short episode here. But you'll begin to notice ways to make your side hustle happen that you didn't even think of or notice prior to making the decision to act. One of the tools that comes to your beck and call is called your reticular activating system, or RAS. It heightens your sensitivity to important information. It's a network of nerve fibers found deep within the brainstem, and it helps regulate the brain's level of awareness. Sensory messages that pass through the brainstem stimulate the RAS, which in turn stimulates activity and alertness throughout the cerebral cortex. The RAS acts as a filter, bringing to your attention that which is important to you. For example, right now you have a sensation in your left toe, your big left toe. Now, I'm assuming you don't have a physical impairment that would prevent that. Now, as I said, your big left toe, your conscious awareness went down to it, and you can sense, oh, yeah, okay, I feel it there. But a moment ago, hopefully that wasn't the most important thing on your mind. At any given moment, you're surrounded by thousands of stimuli, sights, sounds, scents, and images. You couldn't possibly absorb them all in a conscious level. Even a very simple room in your home, it's filled with stimuli. What's on the floors, anything hanging on the walls, the colors in the room, even the lighting. When I walk into a room, I will instantly see any fresh flowers that might be around. You may have heard me talk about being in the flower business. We were predominantly wholesale, but we also did some retail. And some weeks we sold upwards of 11,000 carnations. And that was just one type of flower. I noticed flowers. But for my friend Joel, a lifelong professional visual artist, his gaze would slide right over the flowers and instead be focused on any and all paintings. I may or may not notice the paintings. But Joel, he notices art. Remember, your reticular filters stimuli based on what's important to you, not anyone else. You and I could be walking down the street together and we'd notice very different things. One thing that jumps out at you might not even register with me, and vice versa. Maybe in the past you've bought a vehicle. You remember driving it off the dealer's lot or away from its previous owner, and as you're making your way down the road, you begin to notice how many other people are driving that same make, that same model and color of vehicle as you. They were out there on the road before, but prior to your heightened interest in that vehicle by buying it, they weren't important to you. I recall a woman in one of my seminars when I was explaining this. She started laughing and she said, I know exactly what you're talking about. She said, it wasn't until I became pregnant that suddenly I started to notice all the baby stuff in my day-to-day world. Now, when it comes to a side hustle, imagine you've decided to start a mobile car detailing service. And if you're honestly, truly serious about this, don't be surprised when you're standing in line at the grocery store that you hear people behind you mention how they can't find the time to drop off their vehicle somewhere and leave it for the day to get cleaned. Your little ears perk up and you spin around and have a conversation with them. Had you not had that on your radar in a big way, you probably wouldn't even heard them. I remember wanting to buy a passive income business of some description and landed on self-storage. It was a perfect fit. At the time, I knew nothing about self-storage, but from what I was reading, it ticked all the boxes. There's a point where you move from just thinking about it to making a heart and soul decision and commitment to make it happen. At the point where I did that, shortly after I was invited to a party, I went, and through a friend of a friend, I was introduced to someone who happened to own a portfolio of no less than 14 self-storage facilities across 2 major cities. Needless to say, I had a conversation with him and he ended up being a mentor. And I did buy one. Your thoughts are powerful. Make no mistake about it, both in the positive and the negative. So going back to our seed analogy, if you had fertile soil and you planted basil over here and poison ivy over there, and you gave energy to both, they're both going to grow. So what are you giving energy and attention to right now? What you do want and how things could work, or what's wrong and why it's not going to happen for you? Because either way, you're going to be right. When I began to understand this, I tell you, I was so excited because then it becomes, wow, okay, I am truly responsible for my life, regardless of what's happened in the past. And let's keep in mind, those learning experiences, no matter how difficult or awful they were, they can be invaluable lessons for us today. I'd like to say that the past should be a guidepost and not a hitching post. Let's harvest the good from them in terms of our learning and forgive the rest and move on and become wiser for it. So to recap, our thoughts and feelings drive our behavior, giving us the results that we're getting in life. Now, obviously, there's a lot of depth to that, and I typically spend days teaching these principles. But basically what it means is if we want to change our happiness, our health, our wealth, the success of our side hustle, we need to start at the beginning, which is what thoughts are we involved with on a day-to-day basis? Are the seeds we're planting helpful or are they hurtful? Because if a person is stuck in self-doubt, that behavior, that physical action is going to show up as procrastination, endlessly delaying, aiming for perfection that doesn't exist, and possibly giving up before they even start. What then is the result of those behaviors? No side hustle. Are you seeing the connection? Conversely, a person who has a healthy self-image recognizes, yes, we have our successes, but we also have our learning experiences. It's part of life. It's our growth. So they go for it. This person launches their side hustle quickly and improves as they go, knowing they can invest a little and learn a lot. And it's progress. They're learning, they're doing, it's building. One more thing I want to point out. It's not your thoughts on a conscious level that drive your behavior. That's done by your subconscious conditioning. So when I use the words thinking and feeling, I'm talking about the conscious mind and the subconscious mind. And there is interplay and interaction between the two, of course. But a person on a conscious level can say, I would love to start and grow my side hustle. And they talk about it, but they never act on it because what they're saying on a conscious level doesn't affect their behavior at all. So that's why we can wish for something, talk about it, sometimes for years, but never act on it. In those early years when my shyness controlled me, so often I'd be at an event and I would see these people that seemingly could meet and greet people really easily and could talk to others. And I thought, Wow, I would love to be able to stand up and walk over and be able to do that. And I could think of how wonderful it would be. The opportunities that would open up for me, the interesting people I would meet, the things that I could learn. But my butt stayed put. Why? Because that's not part of the mind that controls the behavior. Because on a subconscious level, my feelings were, I don't really have anything to offer, and there's a good chance I'm just going to get rejected anyway. So I'm just going to stay here where I'm safe, or in many cases, left early. I mean, truth, I would avoid networking events like the plague. But once I learned that I could change my belief system, a whole world opened up. So here's an exercise for you to wrap things up. For the rest of the day, at least, I'd like you to do this for a whole week, but for at least a day, really listen to your self-talk. Become consciously aware of it. Because it's mostly habitual, you might even want to make a note to yourself that'll act as a reminder, something like, what am I thinking right now? And put the note somewhere where you'll see it during the day so that you can ask yourself periodically, what am I thinking right now? Are the thoughts positive and helpful and productive, or are they negative, counterproductive, and working against you? When it comes to your side hustle, are your thoughts helpful? Or are you thinking, I'm not ready yet. I don't have the time. Besides, I'm not an entrepreneur. My family's never had a business. I need more skills or resources first. Maybe I should do some more research. There's a chance, a big chance, I might fail and then people will judge me. Maybe I'll just skip this side hustle idea. It was a dumb idea anyway. Does that sound like the person who's going to jump into action and start a side hustle and be successful with it? No way. So begin to really guard your thoughts, monitor them, because your thoughts really do become things. That's the topic of my flagship masterclass. It's called How to Turn Your Thoughts into Wanted Things, because as per the topic of this episode, our thoughts and feelings drive our behavior, our actions, producing the results that we're getting in our lives. And each of us have the ability to take conscious control over our thinking to craft a belief system that is supportive of living at our highest and best. It does not happen overnight, and it takes courage, it takes guts, it takes goals. The reminders, like writing them down on a piece of paper, are important because the majority of what you and I do, what we think, how we behave, is habitual. And a habit is something that you do automatically without giving it any conscious thought. So seeing the note will cause you to stop for a moment and check in with yourself to see if you are thinking positively or whether you're bad-mouthing yourself. And when you become consciously aware of it, in that moment, you can change it. I have notes stuck to the inside of my front door, next to my bed, on the wall in my office. Sometimes it's just a single word or a sentence, but it's a reminder of something that I'm focusing on. If you don't already do this, give it a try. Let me know what you think. One last thing I want to mention. When you drop into that relaxed state during meditation and see yourself in your mind's eye already achieving the side hustle success you're working toward, you gain an extra advantage. When you return to your normal state, you can compare those two pictures, where you are now versus where you want to be. That contrast helps you bridge the gap, making the next steps clearer. When I set the goal of becoming a branch manager and visualized myself in that role, I asked, what knowledge would I need? How would I interact with people? Once I could see those details vividly, I knew exactly what actions to take, immediately moving in that direction. The clearer your picture, the easier it becomes to take meaningful steps towards making it real. Your side hustle success starts with the thoughts that you choose to nurture. Choose wisely. Every step you take builds momentum, every challenge brings new insights, and every effort moves you closer to the success you're working toward. Guard your thoughts, trust in your potential, stay focused, and know that the results you deeply envision are already taking shape. Your best is yet to come. Well, that's a wrap for today. By the way, I should mention that for decades now, I've been using what I call the mind-body model. I created it to teach and help illustrate For example, the principles that I've been sharing here today. It's a visual representation of the conscious mind, the subconscious mind, and the body, and our results, and how that's all hooked up. I've included an image of it with the full show notes that you'll find on the episode page at sidehustlehero.com. I think you'll find it helpful. If you found this episode helpful and you're enjoying our podcast, consider giving the show a caffeinated thumbs up by shooting me over a virtual coffee. It's a real thing over at sidehustlehero.com/support. Thank you so much. And it would be so appreciated if you would take a moment and add your comment, share the episode, and please subscribe. It'll let others know that there's valuable content here to help them start or grow their side hustle. Thanks for watching, and hustle on.